Have you ever felt that you are doing everything in your power to make things happen, yet even when the circumstances prove that you are successful in your endeavors, you still feel this little bit of emptiness, inadequacy, believing that you are still not contributing enough? Well, this could be a sign of imposter syndrome, which we're going to be covering today in this satellite episode of the Mindora Lab podcast. I will be breaking down the history, the definition, and 5 tools that you can use in your everyday life to help you navigate these feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, and fear of failure. Please tune in, listen, and see how you can make connections in your own life to help you navigate these feelings when they arise. Just as a reminder, the Mindora Lab podcast is for educational and informational purposes solely. All subjects discussed on this podcast should not be construed as medical or legal advice. You should always seek out help from a professional provider. Thank you. Hi, welcome to today's first satellite episode where I will be covering imposter syndrome. The definition by the National Institute of Health is defined as a behavioral health phenomenon described as self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments among high-achieving individuals. I'll take this with a grain of salt because most people nowadays, post-pandemic, are feeling this level of phenomenon where they doubt their abilities, accomplishments, and internalize feeling like they're frauds despite the evidence of their competence. People experiencing imposter syndrome often attribute their success to luck or external factors, fearing they will be exposed as imposters who don't deserve their achievements. This mindset can lead to self-doubt, anxiety, and a persistent fear of being discovered as inadequate, even in the face of objective success. Imposter syndrome is common in various fields and can affect individuals regardless of their actual skills or qualifications. Imposter syndrome was first described in 1978 by Suzanne Imes, PhD, and Pauline Rose Clance, PhD, as an observation first among successful women and other marginalized groups. Since then, it's grown into a topic of debate on whether or not this should be included in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. While there's no formal definition of imposter syndrome, there are 6 characteristics that are identified by Dr. Clance, which are imposter cycle, perfectionism, superheroism, atychiphobia, which is fear of failure, denial of competence, and achievomophobia, which is the fear of success. I believe the 3 that were described in her 6 characteristics that stick out to me the most that I've experienced in my professional career is, first off, perfectionism, secondly, denial of competence and capability, and I think most importantly, atychiphobia, the fear of failure. I believe most of us hold ourselves to a higher degree of self-standard that we expect from ourselves when we're delivering in relationships, at work, or even in schooling. When we don't meet these unattainable standards, though, however, it puts us in a cycle that can be overcritical and non-constructive. The inability to move and maneuver through these feelings can linger, though, ultimately result in overcritical, judgmental, and non-constructive feedback that you are internalizing without realizing that this could lead to further and further mentality demise. So what I want to discuss next is 5 simple ways that you can navigate imposter syndrome and recognize that you have all the tools within your arsenal at your disposal to combat these feelings when they do pop up in your life. Now you're probably wondering, how does this pertain to alternative medicine? Well, actually, naturopathy is a form of alternative medicine and is defined as an approach that emphasizes the body's ability to heal itself through natural therapies such as herbal medicine, nutrition, and lifestyle changes. Most importantly, that last part, lifestyle changes, where we can attribute different routines that help us contribute to our overall well being, including therapy, exercise, and most importantly, hobbies that we enjoy, that we can connect with. So, here are the 5 tools that I've used in my life to help me resolve these feelings of imposter syndrome when they arrive. We'll break them down step by step, numerically. I think this first one is quite honestly the best one. 1. Celebrate your achievements. Acknowledge your accomplishments to give yourself credit for your hard work. Keep a record of your successes to reflect on during moments of self-doubt. This is very, very important, and there's ways that you can remind yourself of your achievements by recognizing what's been provided. So, what I would recommend is taking a list of the goals that you wrote down. And if you're not doing this already, start writing down a list of goals that you wish to achieve in a month, 6 months, a year. Start crossing those off. That's a tangible piece of evidence that is solely owned by you and can be referred to at any time to give you a reminder of, hey, I'm showing up, I'm doing the things that I'm holding myself accountable for, and I can always go back to this and refer to myself as I'm doing enough, and I don't have to feel these doubts, these insecurities of I'm not doing enough. Other good examples are take progress pictures to see where you're at with your fitness level or where you would like to be. Remind yourself of what steps you are taking to show up to be a better person. Another example would be if you're still in school, get a list of your transcripts for all the grades that you've had over the past years and go back and look at those when you're feeling down and don't feel like you're contributing enough to your studying, your exam preparation. Go back and look at those pieces of evidence that suggest that your talents, your skills, your intelligence are enough. You are the controller of your destiny by recognizing your self achievements. 2. Journaling. This one's a big one. Document moments when you feel like you're an imposter. Write down the thoughts and circumstances surrounding those feelings. And maybe over time you may notice patterns that you will be able to recognize to develop strategies to counteract them. Journaling has been such a benefit for my life because there are times where we are just constantly living in our heads. The moment we wake up, normally we're staring at a phone screen and we're absorbing all of this content of the external world telling us of how to think and behave, yet we are not really digesting the information that we had in the previous day, which starts to be a form of burden on the mind. So when you're able to articulate your feelings on a piece of paper, or even if you're just typing up a Word document journal, the ability to make sure that you can put down how you are feeling into words and then being able to go back and look at that afterwards later on in the day, later on in the week, will help you understand exactly what you need as feedback from yourself to move through these feelings that arise when you feel helpless and you just need a little reminder of, hey, this is only temporary, this is a fleeting feeling, I won't get the time back if I keep dwelling on it. Let's see how I can move forward from this, challenge those beliefs, and push forward. 3. Set realistic expectations. And what I mean by that is avoid setting unrealistically high standards for yourself. It's normal to face challenges and mistakes through our everyday lives. When failures and mistakes arise, embrace them as opportunities for growth. And what I mean by that is when you are feeling down, defeated, recognize that it's okay to feel that in the moment. However, you will need to pull yourself out of that situation and increase your level of awareness of, okay, now how do I learn from this? How do I grow from this mistake? What is this lesson teaching me? And when you're starting to look at all of these situations in a different perspective, holding yourself to realistic standards that you're setting for yourself will help with digesting the situation, downloading the problem, and realizing what the probable solution is. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, you can only set yourself up for success by setting these standards in place. I myself set unrealistically high expectations on myself all the time because I want to show up and push the boundaries with maximum effort. However, you can only show up to the amount of energy and mental bandwidth that you have on a given basis. And at some point, you're going to feel a level of burnout, which eventually pushes you into more and more distraught of the mind when you can't perform at your best. So you have to really understand through self-awareness of the day is going to unfold with how much you can pour from your energy cup. Life is so much better when we are pouring from a full cup. Then we are truly being ourselves, and we are not going into a survival mode instinct of pouring from an empty cup where we ultimately start making more and more mistakes. Errors are showing up in our work, and ultimately this could lead into relationships being affected as well. Number 4, request feedback and talk about it. Request constructive feedback from peers or mentors. Understanding your strengths and areas for improvement from an objective perspective can help dispel feelings of inadequacy. You can always share your feelings with trusted friends, families, or colleagues. Discussing your experiences can provide a different perspective from them. The support that you'll feel afterwards will also help alleviate the sense of isolation. Now, personally, this is something that I struggle with, and I'm sure there are others that feel that when situations are demanding so much from you in a high pressure environment, or if you're feeling the weight of a decision that you need to make that is on a tight deadline, these feelings start to arise where you feel like you are alone. And then you start down a spiral of thoughts that tell you your skills, your talents are not enough. The work, the time, the effort that you're putting into it is not going to be satisfactory for yourself, your mental state, where you know that you could be doing so much more, yet it still won't feel like it's enough in the end, despite the evidence that you are doing the best that you can and the task is going to be done one way or another. So when you start getting into this situation of spiraling through your thoughts, stop, take a deep breath, start to reflect, are these thoughts that I'm having right now actually true? And if so, discuss it with someone else that knows who you really are and really start to understand from their perspective without being defensive, telling them exactly what your train of thought is, and sitting, actively listening to what they are telling you without any input from yourself to really see the total picture that you have painted and look at the details that your mentors, friends, family, colleagues are pointing out so that you can start to recognize that it's really not a situation that's do or die. Yes, there are circumstances that need split second decisions that we're inevitably going to have to make. However, on a day to day basis, we are pretty much in control of decisions that we're making hour to hour. And I think with technology and how fast it's progressed, we are in a state of urgency because of how instantaneous everything is. And the last tool that I recommend, highly recommend this to everyone and anyone, I think number 5 is probably going to be the most important. I know I said number 1 would be with self achievements and recognizing those, but number 5 is seeking out a therapist. When we seek out a therapist, you can significantly impact your well being through a professional's advice, sitting actively listening in an unbiased forum that is going to support your mental health. Remember that overcoming imposter syndrome is a process and it may take time. So you have to be patient with yourself and celebrate the progress that you're making with your therapist. Personally, I had to combat imposter syndrome by myself for the past 5 years because I refused to seek out a therapist. Even when I had full medical coverage, I still told myself that no, this is something that I can figure out myself. When these feelings of frustration and doubt come about, I should be able to handle this and find a solution. Now, I recognize the fault that I had with not seeking out professional help, which led to a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, despite all of the talents and mental tools that I had for myself. When I actually started speaking to a therapist was when my life started to actually improve significantly because now I had someone who was actually supporting me in a manner that I never had prior. Yes, friends, families, mentors, they're all going to be a supportive branch in your system of support. However, a professional understands when they hear specific details of events that they can pinpoint and show you a different perspective of how you should be looking at past histories that you are struggling to understand and cope with. When I started having my therapy sessions, he started pointing out all of these details that I missed for so many years that helped me recognize that I was struggling with imposter syndrome for years and never knew why. However, after my sessions, I started to do more of the other tools that I've mentioned earlier and really started to reflect on how I am starting to perceive myself when I start feeling these thoughts that start to arise. That is a negative self talk of me not doing enough, especially with me pursuing a path that I am creating myself by making this podcast, by starting a company, by really focusing on what Dorian truly wants. Therapy helped me by opening up these channels in my mind that allowed me to push forward past all the self doubt, past the frustrations, past the traumas that were holding me back for so long. And I'm so grateful that I was able to start building these tools that I could use when I got in a situation that started to make this ugly head of an imposter syndrome come up to the surface. I hope that my 5 tools can be helpful in your life by opening you up to a new perspective of how you can start dealing with imposter syndrome or symptoms of it when they do arise, because we definitely need to always be aware of what's happening cognitively and know that the feelings that we have are always going to be temporary, and that the time that we start to invest in ourselves, our self awareness becomes magnified by the consistency of us utilizing the tools that we have in our arsenal. Thank you so much for sitting through and listening to this episode. I had such a good time being able to share my wisdom through my past experiences and how these tools have helped me and continue to help me through my life, my journey. It's only just beginning, and I want to keep sharing more and more of the wisdom that I've accumulated along the way. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. If you can, please follow my Spotify podcast and leave a rating. That would be truly helpful. With your help, my messages through the podcast and the interviews will be more recognized through the Spotify algorithm, and it will start to grow organically. Stay tuned for December because I'll be having multiple interviews with guests on the show, and I will also be following up with another satellite episode. So until next time, don't stop blabbing.